is yours. Please.
Yes, thank you, Vladimir. Welcome. In Tartu, it's actually very pleasant to be at this time of the year in Tartu. Well, this summer is very close. It's starting, so it's to enjoy it. And well, so I hope that you will join your being in Tartu as well. So, but to start another long day. Here is from my perspective, which is actually is international relations, more exactly even international security issues. Well, that I worked before my academic career for a long time for the Estonian Ministry of Defense. So that my background actually is well, it's not military, but close to it. Well, it's dealing with the military from the political side, but also as a topic of ours here is a culture of fear, or fear is also one of motivating factor in policy making. And well, it's in nowadays where we just survive this digitalization. Well, it's enhanced communication. It becomes more and more important. So I give you just a short overview, starting from the George Orwell, which actually describes very well the situation where we live right now. Well, let's see if you have read his stories. 1984 or Animal House, which are the most famous ones. There is a kind of recognition sometimes, so that when actually some effects also related to culture of fear have been effectively used on these political purposes. Therefore, it might be even his stories might be a good handbook for politicians nowadays. Therefore, but his idea actually is not to give instruction manual, but give a warning. So did we learn? This is a question for us. But culture of fear in international politics here, well, it's also, if I refer to my theoretical studies here, which is pretty much related to the political cultures. Well, for the international politics, it has been defined by the Alexander Ventos mostly. This is three cultures of anarchy, like the Hobbesian, Lockean, and Kantian culture. Well, these are certainly give a kind of background to these actions which are taking place. But well, where we might agree is well, the increasing role of fear in this environment we live today. Especially, it has increased after these events. What happened in United States, 9/11. Events where actually the international society after that started to value more like this security or power. Well, and this, if you remember, well, I'm so old, I still remember what was before that. Well, it's in 1990s, 1980s, actually it's the end of the 1980s, where Reagan met Gorbachev first in Geneva, then in Reykjavik, well, it's many other nice places around the world. Well, there was a hope that this is a big opposition between these two superpowers. This is over, and we are facing, well, it's a much more prosperous world. Well, it's which was probably give some boost to the Kantian culture with values is peace and cooperation. And well, the events took another way. So this Hobbesian culture, well, it's a top, which is named by Thomas Hobbes, who is certainly the philosopher from 17th century, English philosopher, so that when his political philosophy, because at this time we even didn't know international relations, this was somehow regulated by this political philosophy. This international relations was invented actually in the 20th century. Well, but the ideas which we have borrowed from different politicians or political philosophers, so these they still survive. So let's take it as our kind of philosophical background here. But what has this characteristic is very strong securitization. This means that we will see different things through security paradigm. And here actually the fear is a very, very dominating factor here. Well, that we fear different things. Well, it's in 20 years ago, it was this fear against this Islamic terrorism, for example. It was certainly boosted by the actions of 9/11. But well, here I also refer, kind of motto here is Zbigniew Brzezinski. You hopefully have heard. He's also former national security advisor to President Carter, but well, it was also a prominent political scientist, who actually described the culture of fear in light of these events we had at this time. Well, and this is very good definition one here. So it's a culture of fear, obscures reason, intensifies emotion, and makes demagogic politicians to mobilize the public on behalf of the policies they want to pursue. Well, it's politicians for this increasing their mobilizing power. This fear is very helpful. Well, that if you identify that you fear anything, so you will also vote for this politician, because maybe you hope they provide you security. Does it work or not? This is even not important. Therefore, why we are talking here on the culture of fear. This is not just fear. Fear is also a kind of, I refer here to the definition of Aristotle, which has been developed actually by the US political scientist Richard Ned Labo in his concept, which was actually offering this cultural theory of international relations. So fear here by Aristotle is a pain or disturbance due to imagining some destructive or painful evil in the future. So it is also, as probably even defined by later specified by Labo, if we compare it with these three main motives, which is appetite, spirit, and reason, by this ancient Greek philosophy, this is more like emotion. But the effect of fear is pretty much the same. Well, we still see it as a very big motivating issue here. Well, and of course the images, here's a war of terror, which was referred actually by this Zbigniew Brzezinski here. Well, it certainly promoted, in our politics. Well, it's first, of course, I mentioned it started with a white fight against this Islamic terrorism. We remember the events which followed, what happened in Afghanistan, what happened in Iraq, where actually the first 10 years which was, well, kind of a reaction to these events, which were unexpected, but well, later moving on, these motions started to enlarge, so that we have now so many different fears. Well, it's even right now what we have in Ukraine, we have this in Palestine, which are very promising, let's say, topics to promote such kind of emotion. But the problem with fear is usually, but it might be attractive. It has some positive effects, so that just consolidate to people. Well, if you have a common fear, you can easily find this touching point here. But well, here I also refer to political options to manage the fear. First one is well known. War against terror started by George Bush. Well, it actually was very well described by Canadian political scientist Brian Masumi here. His article, Fears of Spectrum of State, well, where he actually focused on these changes, what the United States society made, well, that's by the initiative of George Bush. After these attacks, how well this the society was more and more influenced by consequences of the fear, so that to promoting different political actions, so that to use it on behalf your policies you want to pursue. Well, here is as referred by Zbigniew Brzezinski. There is another option. Well, you probably also remember, this is not very long time ago, this is maybe 15 years ago, where was the biggest attack against Norway. This was made actually by one man. This is a one-man attack by Anders Behring Breivik. And well, it's even here then. Jens Stoltenberg, who was at this time, he was a prime minister of Norway. Now he's a general secretary of NATO, of course. And he was asked, so that will he follow this the way of George Bush in his reaction, so that to promoting these effects on behalf of this his policies, so that he said no at this time. Well, because well, for us this is more important to maintain this liberal democracy, so that this is not justified that we will start closing our democratic traditions because of fear. Even it offers actually an opportunity. Well, this is actually kind of different, so that if you can take this populist way, you can easily promote fear, you can have many votes in elections, but you don't offer solutions. Well, at here, well, I was, even I remember, was happy. It's just this is the second attack I watched directly from TV, and this was quite a surprising event. Well, it's in New York against these Twin Towers at this time, which was actually, well, from the imagological perspective, which was, of course, so that this was kind of trademark of Al-Qaeda. Well, it's, of course, they made attacks aftermath, but they didn't have such of global effect as this attack in the United States it had now more than 20 years ago. And well, it's not just United States, but all this global society, so that it gives a kind of kind of shine also still to the name of Al-Qaeda, where this one terrorist group was able to achieve this promotion. So this is at how actually this culture of fear can be used. Here I refer to this well-known German-American, now he lives already a long time in United States, Alexander Wendt, who is also founding father of the third major school in international relations, is a constructivist, and he also in his main works actually referred. This is more or less the constructivist view. This is not a realist view, which is pretty much Hobbesian or Lockean way here, or the Kantian one, which you can characterize liberal school of international relations. And this Wendt school, or the social constructivism, this is a third major school, but can even study to other schools here. Well, it's what is actually the main point of the Thomas Hobbes. This was enmity, so everyone fights against others, so that there is a big war against to all. And there is Locke, which was John Locke, named, which was maybe one century later. He actually values stability, so there is a moral rivalry. This is not active fight, but it's everyone looks stability, but it still pretty much concerns power. And it's a third view was actually from the Immanuel Kant related here, which actually focuses during this Napoleonic War started at the end of the 18th century, so this is also based his philosophical credo, which based on the cooperation. It might be called by friendships, because this means that in this case you are friend, but you have to share values. So that if you don't share the values, you certainly are not friends. But it's a friends should actually cooperate each other to promote their world, which and just to reduce the violence. For Thomas Hobbes, for example, violence was a normal behavior, and by accepting such a way, certainly we can also accept what Vladimir Putin does nowadays. Is it normal way to act, or it is unnormal? And there is a kind of time difference. It's depending on your culture. So here I just shortly show how this system of international relations, how it proceeded. Starting actually from the Westphalian system, because before that, as I mentioned, there was no international relations. There were different sovereigns, but not the system. Of course, this can be objected. There are different views. There are some scientists which also refer to the ancient times first international system. Anyway, what there was, for example, in ancient Greece between Athens and Sparta, it's pretty close to it. But it's all these some parts of the system. I don't go to very details because it's not related to the topic of today. But this might be related also some cultural paradigms here. And what here is just also a short look. What is interesting? Now we say that there has been all this cooperation. It ended after the Cold War. They started a new one and so on. But there was actually a very long time. We can say even that 20 years where actually this Kantian system worked very well, and even more than then after maybe 10 years, even after the 9/11 attacks, were actually United Nations, which now it's totally demolished, so that the system just doesn't work, especially in conflict management. So there is no agreements. There are so big polarization in UN Security Council. But well, quite a long time actually they were able to reach conclusions. And this major conflict, it lasted around 20 years, starting from this first Gulf War. And well, the last attempt, and this was already a critical one, is in Libya, where actually also they at least were able, these 5 votes here means abstained. Well, you see this second number is who actually voted against. So it's in the case of the Gulf Wars, there were just Cuba and Yemen, but as they are not permanent members of Security Council, they don't have a veto power. But basically, well, it's 20 years, of course. Afterwards, it was much harder, so that you to find this recognition from China and Russia, which were the most prominent, let's say, so opposing powers. But well, somehow all these conflicts have been regulated. Well, it's to manage this international interference was somehow established. But well, it's starting from Syria, it totally changed. Now, actually, well, we have certainly we have issues on Ukraine, but well, one part of the conflict has a veto power in United Nations Security Council, and well, it just does means that therefore United Nations isn't just able to interfere the conflict, because well, it's the biggest goal of every conflict is starting this reconciliation process to manage conflict to go to the end. But the situation nowadays we have in the current international system, well, they are not just able either to reform the system or to just forcing these opposing powers like Russia and China just to behave more constructively. And this is an issue. So that I don't know how long it proceeds, but certainly this is also related to the issues what just raised in the last year. And also, of course, the most prominent place of fear as well. So it's cognitive warfare, which is all kind of psychological or influence operations, which have quite a prominent place in our conflict. Well, of course, we see that in Ukraine they still kill each other in very traditional ways, so that two states are fighting each other. But in the background of it, there is a much bigger, a much comprehensive system which has very deep influence to the processes. Well, there is cyber attacks, there are information operation, influence operation. Well, okay, there are just different nuances between those two. This is an increasing role of social media, which means that, well, that even states are not able to conduct each other. Well, that's because there are, let's say, out of state powers which can make their influence, especially why it makes actually democracies more vulnerable for the crisis in nowadays. So it's a computational propaganda, was all kind of processes, also national protectionist way. What is the most dangerous? Why? This makes it polarization, which actually makes these traditional Western powers weaker as they are polarized. Those authoritarian ones, this is a much easy process. Okay, well, I will just go on here because the main concept we focus today is culture of fear. It is also related with uncertainties, and together uncertainties. You are not very convinced about your future. It can produce for political decision making. So it can produce irrational response. So it's normally, even in political sciences, you think that politicians, they are making rational decisions. But if we take all these influences here, the fear, but also other motives like honor or interest, they have their affection as well, which doesn't mean necessarily that they are rationally calculated. So the role of the reason, the third motive, this is becoming more weaker and weaker. And this is actually, it's described also by Zbigniew Brzezinski here. And pretty much here why I started with George Orwell is so that what is the goal is transformation of knowledge, so that how we understand the world. So it's knowledge here is in the center point. Well, and different schools, they present different ways how we understand. So it's sometimes even, which is more popular, actually, it's realist tradition, and this is a dangerous one. So people take it as a Bible. These politicians like realist school because it is easy to get votes in elections. It's easy to understand for the people. You can make it very simple, just from the liberal perspective. Well, and I remember days where this liberal was quite a neutral term. This is not the world fighting between conservatives and liberals. So we are actually, but the main goal here is we are building a better world. So it's to reference to this study of Immanuel Kant is why we cooperate, we share values, and there are actually much more important issues we have to solve. So, and these issues are actually increasing. So, this fighting doesn't help anyone. Even it looks, for the short term, you might have an effect so that you can mobilize, even based on on the fear. And the constructivist tradition was the third way I mentioned this. Alexander went is just there are different ways to understand the world, which means actually what I said. This you can take the realist view, you can take the liberal view, but constructivism is actually another one of study is above them, so that they are just looking, studying, examining how these different cultures they work. So at here, if we can take these practical examples, this is in the Hobbesian culture, U.S. is as winner. In the local culture, it is just as a great power, which is very powerful, but this is doesn't mean anything. So that you have to increase your power, but status quo is the best way to go on. And for the Kantian culture, in this world, U.S. is a leader. This is a different of a winner. But it means that also you trust this international organization, you trust this multinational, well, you are not just the only one in this world, but you somehow you have to agree with others. This is very difficult to understand. Well, it's even the real life as well. Therefore, all these issues we see in these international relations, we actually, well, we can very easily translate in terms we have just in our, well, it's a real life here in the everyday life. So at all this situation with just much bigger actors, they will be repeated in this international relations. And well, here is actually this is the main point here. Well, is Russia wrong in their action in Ukraine, or is Russia bad? Which is very popular. Especially it is promoted for some conservative circles here. Well, the behavior by them, behavior of Russia is normal, but he's just a bad actor. But well, if countries goes to fighting against each other, this is a normal way. So that they are just on the opposite way. But well, if we take this Kantian approach, so that well, we can define Vladimir Putin very directly as a criminal. So that because he is going against the law. Well, this is, I just recommend, this is a Bulgarian political scientist, Ivan Krashtev, who wrote on these 3 different worlds, Merkel, Putin, and Xi. There are differences, so that even between Putin and Xi, well, and pretty much they also represent these 3 cultures. So that Hobbesian is very much the Putin's way, Lockean, which is actually values stability, because China is also a big economic power. This is a more Lockean approach, and well, the Merkel's one, why actually this Germany and France has been heavily criticized by even some political circles. This is just to promote this Kantian way to make agreements. So, which is, yeah, much more difficult to understand. This is a concept we promoted with my colleague from US, Eric Shirayev, about this global information warfare, why or global knowledge warfare, why knowledge is because the center point here is knowledge. So this is a question to transfer the knowledge, so that to make different meanings, so that also it produces a cultural change. So it's a free cultures. There is a culture of uncertainty. There is a culture of fear. So this is a culture of rational response. I already told on that. And well, there are so many different tools which are important in this world, which is image building, so that to make visualization, so that if these images what you can see, so that they are more powerful. Why Trump wants to build the war against Mexico, so that you can see it. So that if there is a war, so it might make you, okay, he has made. So it's much more difficult to make changes in your mind. And also fabrication of fake news, which is also we have heard. So that in this world we live now, right now, so-called post-truth is so that if you believe this is the way, so it becomes a reality, creating these new realities. Revival of historical myths, conspiracy theories, all they are working on the same direction. Well, I will skip. It was pretty much the same, this operationalization of knowledge warfare. But here you see 2 gentlemen, which actually play a very active role in this world. This picture was taken in Montenegro, I think the city of Stanilovgrad, once during the first presidency. Well, are they friends? I don't know. They don't have to be, and well, even if they follow their culture, they necessarily don't need to be friends. But well, what is the question here? Because they understand the world as the same categories. For them, well, this means I mentioned that he's a Putin criminal or he's just a bad person. For the Trump, he might be a bad person because he's against some growing of U.S. interest, but well, at here you might even understand why even the Putin supports. So it's Trump and his parties will win elections because they are facing a similar world. Even they might stay as enemies in this world, because but the status of the enemy is quite normal. And this is probably the problem here. I don't want to go to very details, therefore I then end my presentation here, but I still, okay, this is about the post-truth society. Well, it is pretty much, well, what I said, so that if you believe that Trump won elections in 2020, so it becomes a truth. So it's so easy to make it true. So it is my concept, actually, everyone can build its own world, his or hers, move in and start fighting with other worlds. What we see is a process pretty often in internet and what there. And facts, yeah, they are becoming quite irrelevant. Here you see some quotations. I don't have so much time, so that I will not read them. But well, it's the first refers to Vladimir Putin. So it actually he understands pretty much. So that this is how this world we have today proceeds. So that he follows it. So this might give just such impression, but it's pretty much supposed truth is create new realities. Okay, this is so just to describe how the world is. And this is, of course, the increasing role of the media as well. Here I refer, of course, he's a leftist philosopher, Herbert Marcuse, but he's a well-known, and also I'm pretty open to borrow the concept from both sides of political spectrum, or all sides of political spectrum, because it's, in his definition to media, I'm not pretty much agree. So that this as a marketing purposes here, well, it's so that to create the object as a people who actually just take it very purposedly, the world. Well, let's say are not able to change, unable to adapt to change, and therefore actually very easily manipulated. And this is actually, well, it's what all these extremist sides of both sides, of the alternative right to the alternative left, very effectively use how to manipulate the people and how to create new realities. And here they are supported, of course, where some international actors may go the same way as Russia and China, and not the only one. There was a study made by Oxford University. This was around about 70 countries which use this computational propaganda, but well, it's probably the number is much higher. So it also, of course, the question is how we define this computational propaganda. Well, it's also these effects are the image building character assassination, which is very close to this negotiation process of this conference. And this is becoming also very popular way to manipulate with the politics here. And we are living in this post-factor world here, as you see described by Peter Pomerantsev, who is a British, actually, the media specialist. So that fear stimulates very easily the public audience, so that millions of fools can't possibly be wrong. It might be true. This is a problem. And here, why democracies are more vulnerable for influences. Therefore, there are different policies can be promoted, not just good one, but well, this is, if we take another direction, we also move away from the democracy, and this is becoming dangerous. Therefore, well, it's somehow we should maintain this polarity in opinions here. But well, as mentioned, popular opinion and wise opinion, they don't necessarily overlap. So at some popular opinions even promoted the majority. These are pretty full ones. This is the issue. Here I also refer to the Anthony Bourdain. He made suicide, but well, it's also opinion leader and different actions. Well, it's also had a kind of libertarian view, but he also accused, well, this is the leftist side of the society also creating the situation so that we can't just make all these responsibilities to one side, because, well, when now you are dancing, there are always two sides. And here actually with promoting different also denunciation cultures, this alternative left also has responsibility in promoting this fear in international arena. And well, there are also some successes. Well, they look like different, might even survive each other, but well, there are quite many examples where they can even work together. I hope if I reach to the end also to some with colorful examples here. The cancel culture, well, it's also, we take it, we don't want to recognize it pretty much, but it still exists. Of course, there are proponents. Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. So I will make it short, and you can ask just if you have. But well, there are proponents, there are critics. This is a kind of reality which exists in this world. And well, here is one reference to George Orwell as well. This is political language is designed to make lies sound truthful and more respectable, and to give an appearance of solidity to poor wind. You agree or not? It's up to you. And well, it's some also effects by which culture can be promoted. Well, here is a picture. Well, which one in this picture actually is a question to you. I asked from my students. So he's actually a Slavic terrorist. Is picture above or below where you went? There is a real terrorist. Yeah, okay. This is a gentleman who is Hasib Habib, who is responsible for London attack. Well, it looks very normal, so it doesn't mean so at the building images, so at how Islamic terrorist looks like. It looks like this is a pretty normal cat actually. So if he or she looks like this one, well, it's his or she's not dangerous anyway. Well, because if you go to the criminal actions, of course, you don't want to bring attention here. This is also why the images, well, it's becoming more powerful. What I also told you about this Trump's wall, this is the same. Well, this is one also quite unfortunate situation what followed the same bomb attacks I showed you this a terrorist. Well, it's some Brazilian person living in London. He was killed because he looked very similar to this one terrorist. Well, this is General Menezes, is normal person, and he's a terrorist. At the right side is a Hussein Osman. They look similar, but well, for the London police, it looked so that he was killed because he was just looking like by the police well, it's the actual terrorist. So it happens in this kind of fear. I will skip this technological part. Well, it's also important one is around alternative movements, but I just want to show you some pictures. So at how alternative movements, which are promoting these fears, they are becoming very well powerful. This is an image, a strongman image, which is becoming more popular. Well, this politicians like Trump, Putin, Xi, Erdogan. Well, it's even in the Israeli cases, Netanyahu. They want to show them powerful, so can be trusted. Well, it's some references to Vladimir Putin. Well, it's also how he understands the world we live right now. So at how actually he's referring these traditional values because it looks like quite good tools for him just to promote his understanding about this world relationship. But well, here you see also, this is a very good image actually here, how he positions. This was during the coronavirus. Here are also gentlemen, Shoigu, defense minister at this time, and Gerasimov, who is still chief of staff, but well, at how they actually meet their boss, so in this world. So that's, and if you actually compare the enemy list of the Putin and all these alternative movements, this is pretty much the same. The Soros, Gates, Clintons, Thunberg, well, this is, they are working on the same goal in this connection. Just, I will, I will skip the part of the movement, but this is a picture I actually wanted to show you because I made some research. You remember the Silvesternacht, Köln, it was 2015, I think 16, there were some disturbances in, well, it's some people who were accused in the raping and so on. Well, yeah, they found maybe a couple of people in Germany who were actually found guilty. Well, I also made this research, post-event research, which usually has been skipped, but it was this narrative was actually very actively promoted by media. And what is important, and this is dangerous, actually this narrative was for different reasons promoted by this alternative left and alternative right. Alternative left is all these feminist issues, so it's men violent, and for the alternative right, of course, migrants. Even there were no migrants, there was just workers from the northern part of Africa, and well, certainly pretty much is fake news and false information was disseminated, but we're here actually says united in this in creating this big narrative, which was anti, let's say, Arab, anti-migrant, or well, it's people with other racial identification, but also this is also promoted this gender issue. To some respects, for well, for quite a while, this narrative was actively promoted. And here we see, well, what is the result of this environment, of some fear even we live today. Well, this is a normal politics. Well, even we see these supporters of Trump, they attacked the Capitol Hill 4 years ago, but it still is. Trump is going to presidency, so this is now even his popularity has been grown since, because he shows very strong in this respect. And so why the world actually we promote here a house of fear can promote these political positions here. This is producing. So, but well, here. I don't know, do we have any questions, but I will actually thank you for having me here. It was really a pleasure. I will show you also some books we also produced with Vladimir, on these topics. First is Russian Federation in global knowledge warfare, and another one is producing cultural change in political sciences. Both are by Springer. Well, and this is just one part of this our cooperation in this joint publication. But well, anyway, I will thank you being here in Tartu, having me here in presenting, and well, if we have time of a couple of questions, of course, I'm very happy to.
Thank you, Dr. Wilder, for this excellent presentation. I think we have still time for some questions. Yeah, please, Sebastian.
Yeah, so yesterday we mainly spoke about how denunciation fosters a culture of fear, but what you have presented, I think leads me to think the other way around, that this culture of fear, that there are enemies everywhere, promotes the phenomenon of denunciation. If you live in such a world that is dangerous and where all the people are your enemy, your Hobbesian approach, then you are really motivated to denounce everyone because people are enemies and are behaving bad. So would you see it like that?
Yeah, thank you. Well, actually there is also, well, it's culture of fear. It is also a very minor field in international relations. Probably Frank Furedi or Brian Manshumi, I mentioned, also have made, focused on this issue. Well, but when this, let's say, the emotional connection to international world, and well, it's also the international actors, how they operate. These are pretty much actually internal politicians operate. There is no difference, even if the people operate to each other. So this is quite the same. But well, at the same time, there is also the issue of reputational attacks and character assassination, for example, which is also close to the issue of this denunciation. So the denunciation is certainly also part, and it works also internationally between these international actors as well. So all these bodies, not depending which what they represent, but they behave quite the same way. Therefore, even this denunciation in international relations, it might happen. Well, that I haven't have any work published on this field yet, but this is certainly this idea, maybe in future for sure. But well, it's I recognize that this is the culture of fear is just a big picture here. Well, but the fear can be moved very actively in the different fields of our everyday life. I will take a very broad definition here, because international actors and these people, they act pretty much in the same way.
Dr. Kripper,
thanks for your talk. I'm linking my question to Sebastian's question right now. Over the last years, not especially because of Corona or COVID, but it had this development too. Is there any personal defense strategy against evoking fear in me? So is it maybe more information? Is it less information? Talking to people during the last 5 years, I always thought to myself, well, sometimes it helps not to inform myself on certain topics, not to read every web page, not to discuss every development in my own society with others. So is there any positive sign you could set, any positive option we have against this culture of fear?
Yes, this is a very good question. So, and well, to find this solution is a really hard one. because we have actually too many issues we have to solve. But well, all these kind of fear, all these emotions, they can take us in different direction. And here, even as you mentioned this COVID, well, it's certainly with this global response, it's much easier to solve. But well, if we are going to different direction. And this one process you correctly mentioned here is also the world has been changed. So what I still remember these years we didn't have internet. Well, but now actually why all these marginal movements actually have became prominent was the image of Donald Trump, for example. They made it, was a presidential campaign of 2000 where Donald Trump was also candidate from the Reform Party, which was a marginal party at this time. He represented all parties of the United States. Don't worry, he wanted to become president. These guys picked up him now, but at this time nobody believes that Donald Trump was becoming powerful. Therefore, this series of Simpson, these comics, so they used his image because he looked like a guy who never gets his presidential style, and there was also just 16 years later, well, as these two images of Trump from Simpsons and real Trump in his 2016 campaigns, they were put together, and this was quite identical. Therefore, this is a very hard question. We have easy access with all different conspiracies, with all this information, and for the people, of course, it's very hard to deal, and especially if it goes to emotions. So fear is emotion, and it's very powerful emotion. So at first, it's very easy me to say that, okay, we just need to chill, so take easy everything. But well, it doesn't work. And also the effect of the media, which actually earns money from these emotions. And this is a very big money, which makes it, therefore all this media is becoming more and more yellow with every year. But we have to deal it, certainly. First, we have to recognize, fighting with every disease, first you have to recognize the disease. Only then it is possible to fight. But there is certainly another more attractive way to go along with all these diseases and get affected. So it's okay. I don't have a good solution. Otherwise, I have not here. I am somewhere, just enjoying this big money somewhere.
So your question?
Thank you. There's two questions. The first one is, should a distinction be made between the attitudes of, perhaps this is a bit peripheral to the overall talk, but should a distinction be made between liberals and left-leaning liberals and the left when it comes to stuff around sort of cancel culture? And I remember you the example of sort of attitudes to the working class. And then the second question is, what's the sort of intellectual sort of underpinnings of this sort of post-truth culture sort of espoused by Trump and Putin?
Yeah, okay, this was also very good and very hard questions to say. Well, because, starting from the terms, also the terms liberal, this was somewhere in the center. He was a person who is let's say, just wanting to increase personal rights. So the personal liberties is traditionally related to classical liberalism, which is not, which has been now actively promoted by this knowledge warfare or information warfare, or these images of liberals. Well, liberal is never extreme in this traditional meaning, but now it's different. Actually, it started from the United States, because for the United States they didn't have a socialist. There was only socialist identified is probably Bernie Sanders once, and therefore for them a liberal person was a leftist one. But yeah, probably it's more correct is we can make different oppositions here. Is even a more conservative worldview and the more, let's say, is a leftist or which is extreme one. probably. And of course, you can become ultra conservative as well. And this started maybe 20 years ago. I was in United States, I studied there, and well, it's probably 30 years ago, nobody didn't care. Are you liberal, are you conservative? Also this image, well, it was promoted probably in this last year because of the digitalization and these processes use access, so you can very easily to just to create these kind of oppositions here. What concerns Trump and Putin, this is, well, actually suppose are pretty similar. Well, let's see, if you just look at the personality of Trump, he is not, well, it's ideologically conservative. As I said, he has been represented all the parties. He's just looked probably more promising why he now joined this alternative right or the alternative ultra-conservative parts. But well, if you are the cult leader, you are not obliged to follow all these rules. You can easily go to stormy Daniels and so on. Yeah, well, I actually had an interview, which is an interesting person because he has Estonian origin, therefore he offered me origin, but he was actually one of the leaders of this Occupy movement, if you remember this alternative left movement, actually, where actually grew up the Bernie Sanders campaign. Some years later, he's a Canadian Estonian, and I made interview, and he actually admired. So, what is different from this alternative left and alternative right? Well, this is a strong positioning with identity for him. So, there is a kind of value system which make this alternative right more attractive. Therefore, well, the left side is vanishing. Well, it's by step. Well, they are not visible anymore. Maybe they were 20 years ago with the Occupy movement, what happened in Greece, for example, this series. Yeah, they are losing. But these alternative right sides, they are still just enlarging. And also by his ideology, what he supports really in his narratives. Actually, Putin also goes with them. But, well, I also don't believe, well, he's, let's say, ideological. So once he uses, he can promote both sides extremists because his goal is just make the West weaker. And this polarization, which actually destroys the West itself, it helps him in his strategic or political goals. So these are pretty much rational choices for both of them, for Trump and for Putin. Therefore, they are pretty much fit in this one picture together. They are not so far as they okay.
So it seems like they're both sort of anti-intellectual.
Yeah, sure, but this is a populism. So if you promote, I don't know, your scientific language to the people, well, nobody take care. But if you just can say very simple truths from very easy words, so these are bad, I am good, well, so you get many votes in elections. So